Today we're diving into 18 forgotten TV shows from the 1970s that shaped our childhood. Let us know which classic you'd love to see back on screen. Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock wasn't your typical Saturday morning cartoon. It was the show that tricked us into learning, and we loved it anyway. These short animated music videos covered everything from grammar to math to history, using catchy songs that somehow made educational content genuinely fun. Who among us doesn't still know the preamble to the Constitution because of We the People? Or the function of conjunctions thanks to Conjunction Junction? These weren't just catchy tunes. They were stealth education that worked better than most classroom lessons. The simple but effective animation style and earworm melodies made complex topics accessible and memorable. Schoolhouse Rock proved that learning didn't have to be boring, and for many of us, these musical snippets still pop into our heads decades later when we need to remember how a bill becomes a law. HR Pufnstuf was like diving into a fever dream with colors, characters, and songs that were as bizarre as they were enchanting. If you ever watched this show after eating too many sugary cereals, you probably questioned if what you were seeing was real. The story followed Jimmy, a boy with a magical flute who gets stranded on Living Island, where everything, from trees to clocks, has a life of its own. And then there's HR Pufnstuf, the island's mayor, part dragon, part friendly giant, always ready to help Jimmy escape the clutches of witchy poo. It was essentially Alice in Wonderland with a 70s psychedelic twist. The wild visuals made every episode feel like you were inside a lava lamp. As kids, we didn't question why a boy was hanging out with a giant dragon in a top hat. We just went with it. Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, quicker than the human eye. Just hearing that theme song brings back memories of the most unlikely martial arts hero ever created, a dog janitor who transforms into a karate-chopping crime fighter. By day, he was Penrod Pooch, a mild-mannered janitor at the police station. But when trouble called, he'd slip into a filing cabinet and emerge as Hong Kong Phooey, armed with his Hong Kong book of Kung Fu and his trusty sidekick, Spot the Cat. What made Hong Kong Phooey so lovable was his complete lack of actual skill. Despite his constant bumbling, he always managed to save the day, usually thanks to Spot's unnoticed help. For kids sprawled on the living room floor with a bowl of cereal, Hong Kong Phooey represented the ultimate underdog, literally, who somehow always came out on top. Captain Kangaroo wasn't just a show. It was like visiting a kind uncle every morning. With his big pockets, gentle manner, and friendly smile, the captain, played by Bob Keeshan, welcomed kids into his treasure house with a warmth that made us feel safe and valued. The show combined storytelling, puppetry, and gentle life lessons. Remember Mr. Green Jeans, the farmer friend? And what about Bunny Rabbit, always trying to trick the captain out of his carrots? Or Mr. Moose with his never-ending supply of ping-pong ball jokes? In a time of increasingly fast-paced children's programming, Captain Kangaroo reminded us to slow down and enjoy the simple things. The show taught kindness, patience, and curiosity without ever feeling preachy. For many of us, it was our first friend on television. Josie and the Pussycats was the perfect mix of music, mystery, and adventure, starring an all-girl rock band who somehow found themselves solving crimes while on tour. With their iconic leopard print outfits and cat ear headbands, Josie, Valerie, and Melody were the coolest girls on Saturday morning TV. Each episode took the band to exotic locations where they'd inevitably get caught up in some nefarious plot. It was like a musical version of Scooby-Doo with better fashion sense. And who could forget their manager Alexandra and her cat Sebastian, always scheming to steal the spotlight. For girls in the 70s, Josie and the Pussycats showed that you could rock out and save the day, all while looking fabulous. Their theme song alone, Josie and the Pussycats, Long Tails and Ears for Hats, is enough to bring back waves of nostalgia. Before Wonder Woman dominated our screens, there was The Secrets of Isis, one of the first superhero shows with a female lead. Remember how teacher Andrea Thomas would transform into the powerful Egyptian goddess? "Oh, mighty Isis," she'd call out, and we'd get chills. For girls especially, seeing a woman summon lightning and control the wind to stop bad guys was revolutionary in the mid-70s. She wasn't just powerful, she was smart, compassionate, and just. The show mixed ancient mythology with modern-day justice, creating something that felt both mystical and relevant. Every episode, Isis taught us about bravery, wisdom, and standing up for what's right. all while looking absolutely fabulous in that white costume with the winged headdress. But wait, what happens when a forgotten sea monster becomes your secret roommate? Stay tuned to find out as we dive into even more bizarre 70s TV shows that shaped our childhood. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was pure 70s magic. Remember the premise? Two brothers, Johnny and Scott, find a friendly sea monster kicked out by his family for being too nice. They decide to keep him as a secret pet. Every kid's dream come true. The charm was in the innocence of it all and the hilarity of hiding a sea monster with big googly eyes from adults. Every Saturday morning, we'd root for Sigmund to stay hidden while laughing at his clumsy attempts to adapt to human life. This Sid and Marty Krofft creation tapped into every kid's desire for adventure, friendship, and a little mischief. Watching it felt like being part of a secret club, and for 70s kids, Sigmund became as much a friend as he was a character on TV. Before he was hosting a surreal talk show in the 90s, Space Ghost was a straight-up superhero defending the galaxy from villains. With his iconic white suit, black mask, and power bands that could shoot energy beams, he was the epitome of space-age cool. Alongside his teenage sidekicks, Jan, Jace, and their monkey Blip, Space Ghost fought evil across the cosmos. The villains were delightfully over the top. Zorak the Mantis Man, Breck the Space Pirate, and Moltar the Lava Being. The animation style was classic Hanna-Barbera, and Space Ghost's powers made him one of the coolest superheroes on TV. Watching him turn invisible to sneak up on villains or blast them with his wrist rays was the height of excitement for young viewers. He might have found new fame as a talk show host, but for 70s kids, he'll always be the hero of the stars. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour was like a colorful, chaotic carnival that exploded onto our TV screens. Hosted by 4 costumed animals, Fleagle, Bingo, Drooper, and Snorky, it was part live-action comedy, part animation, and all madness. That catchy tra-la-la theme song would get stuck in your head for days. The show wasn't just about the antics of these goofy characters. It also featured segments like Danger Island and the Arabian Nights, each with their own adventures. For 70s kids rushing home from school, the Banana Splits was pure entertainment, a variety show that kept you guessing what wild thing would happen next. It felt like being at an amusement park where the rides were made of music, humor, and weirdness. Hey, hey, hey! Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was more than just a cartoon. It was a life lesson wrapped in urban adventures and funky music. Following Fat Albert and his friends in their Philadelphia neighborhood, the show tackled real issues like bullying, divorce, and peer pressure. What made Fat Albert special was how it addressed serious topics without talking down to kids. Each episode dealt with a problem the gang faced, followed by a musical number from their junkyard band playing instruments made from trash. A creativity that impressed us every week. The characters were relatable and diverse, each with their own quirks and personalities. From Mushmouth's unique way of speaking to Rudy's inflated ego, we saw bits of ourselves and our friends in the Cosby Kids. For latchkey kids watching after school, Fat Albert felt like hanging out with friends who just happened to teach you something valuable. If Alice in Wonderland had a 70s makeover with a hefty dose of whatever the costume designers were on, you'd get Lidsville. Another Sid and Marty Krofft creation, this show was about a kid named Mark who falls into a giant magician's hat and ends up in a world where everyone is, well, a hat. In Lidsville, hats walked, talked, and had personalities. From cowboy hats to chef's hats, each character was weirder than the last. And then there was the villain, Horatio J. Hoodoo, the evil magician who was as ridiculous as he was menacing. Charles Nelson Riley hamming it up as Hoodoo was the highlight of many Saturday mornings. His over-the-top performance made him the kind of villain you loved to hate but secretly wanted to win sometimes because he was just so entertaining. Coming up next, the superhero who could transform with just one word and a super team that had us all wishing we could activate our own powers. You won't want to miss these forgotten classics. Long before superhero movies dominated Hollywood, we had Shazam. The premise was the ultimate childhood fantasy. Young Billy Batson could transform into an adult superhero just by shouting one magic word. Every Saturday morning, we'd watch Billy and his mentor, yes, really, travel across the country in their RV, finding people who needed Captain Marvel's help. Unlike today's action-packed superhero stories, Shazam focused on moral dilemmas and doing the right thing. Each episode ended with a life lesson from Captain Marvel himself, teaching us about honesty, bravery, and kindness. It was like having a superhero as your cool uncle, showing you how to be a better person while occasionally zapping bad guys with lightning. The Bugaloos was a trippy mix of music, fantasy, and British accents, like if the Beatles were turned into insects and given a children's show. The story followed a group of 4 teenage bugs, Joy, Courage, IQ, and Harmony, who could fly with their insect wings and played in a rock band in Tranquility Forest. Their nemesis was Benita Bizarre, a jealous, aspiring singer who lived in a jukebox and constantly tried to sabotage the Bugaloos' musical success. Played by Martha Ray, she was the perfect over-the-top villain who chewed scenery like it was going out of style. Each episode featured original songs that were surprisingly catchy. For 70s kids, watching the Bugaloos was like being part of a whimsical band that valued friendship and creativity above all else. It was weird, it was colorful, and it was absolutely unforgettable. Super Friends was the superhero team-up show that had us racing to finish breakfast every Saturday. Featuring DC Comics legends like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, this show brought together the world's greatest heroes to protect Earth from various threats. The addition of the Wonder Twins, Zan and Jaina, with their catchphrase, Wonder Twin powers activate, and their space monkey, Gleek, made the team more relatable to young viewers. Their power to transform into different forms of water and animals led to some creative problem-solving and occasional plot holes. Each episode taught lessons about teamwork, courage, and environmental conservation. Remember those weird environmental morals at the end? For 70s kids, Super Friends was an invitation to believe in heroes and imagine that they too could make a difference. Speaking of female heroes, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl were the dynamic duo girls that the 70s didn't know they needed. 2 superheroines in bright, colorful spandex fighting crime with gadgets and their wits. What wasn't to love? Their electric power bracelets, which looked suspiciously like digital watches, could do pretty much anything the plot required. And those villains. The Empress of Evil, Glitter Rock, the Sorcerer, each more campy and outrageous than the last. What made the show special was that these weren't alien goddesses. They were reporters by day who chose to be heroes. For kids watching after school, the message was clear. Anyone could be extraordinary if they were brave enough. The new Scooby-Doo movies took everything we loved about the original Scooby-Doo and added a genius twist. Celebrity guest stars. Imagine the thrill of seeing Scooby and the gang team up with Batman and Robin, the Harlem Globetrotters, or even Sonny and Cher to solve a mystery. Each episode followed the familiar format. The gang stumbles upon a mystery usually involving a ghost that turns out to be someone in a mask. But the celebrity appearances kept the show fresh and exciting, and the longer episode length allowed for more elaborate plots. This was crossover entertainment before we even knew what that meant. For 70s kids gathering around the TV, it was like seeing your favorite characters meet your other favorite characters. Who wouldn't want to ride in the Mystery Machine and see what famous face would show up next? Land of the Lost was the ultimate adventure for any kid in the 70s. This wasn't your average show. It was this wild journey through a world packed with dinosaurs, time warps, and mysterious creatures. Remember being glued to the TV as the Marshall family got swept away into this prehistoric dimension? And then there was Grumpy, that intimidating T-Rex, who showed up just when you thought things might calm down. The Sleestaks, those creepy lizard beings with the glowing eyes and that spine-tingling hiss. Just the sight of one would make you jump behind the couch. What made Land of the Lost so special was how it mixed suspense, mystery, and family survival. Each episode felt like a new quest with strange artifacts, hidden temples, and cryptic messages that made you wonder what was really going on. Sure, the special effects were cheesy by today's standards, but that just made it more charming. These forgotten TV shows of the 1970s may have faded from the screen, but they'll always be part of our childhood memories. From learning life lessons with Fat Albert to singing along with Schoolhouse Rock and cheering for heroes like Space Ghost, these shows shaped who we were and how we saw the world. If you enjoyed this nostalgic trip back to the weird and wonderful world of 70s TV, smash that like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next retro deep dive. And hey, we want to hear from you. Which of these forgotten gems do you miss most? Drop a comment below and let's keep these memories alive, one classic show at a time. Until next Saturday morning, keep it groovy.